Hello and welcome back to Matt Movies 611. I am your host, Matthew Kearns. Is host the right thing to say? I don't really know. So if you clicked on this video, you probably are thinking that I'm about to give you my top 5 favorite 1980s action movies, but you would be wrong. Now, sure, could I give you a list of my top 5 favorite action movies? Sure. But I thought something that would be more fun is for me to try to sit down and in a non-biased way, put a pin in that, try to figure out what I think are the top 5 best 1980s action movies. Not my favorite, the best. Now remember when I said I put a pin in trying to be non-biased? Of course I'm sure in a way biases they're always going to play a part in these things. There's no way that they can't. But I by that I mean that I'm trying to be non-biased. That this isn't just a list of my favorites. These are the ones that I think are the best. Maybe somewhere down the line I'll do my favorite action movies. That's a list that is, right now it's solidified, but it's always changing. But for right now, we're talking about what I consider to be the top 5 best 1980s action movies. So let's get this started with number 5. First Blood. When I was thinking about all the 1980s action movies, First Blood really did come to my mind very quickly because of how visceral the action feels. This is one of those movies, because action movies can be very, like Commando's a great example. They can be very, fantasy in the way that, you watch Commando, it's a great movie, but when John Matrix is mowing down all those guys, you don't feel the gunshots, really. Whereas in First Blood, you feel everything. I always think of that moment when Rambo's escaping from the sheriff's office, and he kind of he sweeps someone, and then he kind of, I can't remember if he elbows or if he backhands them to the face, but you feel the impact of that hit. You feel the impact when Gaul falls down. You feel the impact of everything. And to me, when I was thinking about the best action movies, that definitely came into it. And yeah, of course, First Blood, it's a great story. It has great acting. This is definitely one of Stallone's best. Now, the reason why it's number 5 is just because it's minimalist. Maybe minimalist is the wrong word, but it doesn't have as much action as maybe some of the other entries on this list. But when I was thinking of the best action movies, I felt like if I did not have a movie that I think has possibly the most visceral action that I've seen, this would just be an incomplete list. So yeah, number 5, First Blood. Number 4, Top Gun. Yeah, this is cheesy 1980s action at its best. I actually wrote an article on my WordPress that I'll link in the description about why I think Top Gun is, one of the best 80s action movies. But really, again, even taking my biases about how much I love this movie, you do have to talk about the fact that what Tony Scott did with this movie was it gave an action movie a real style. And that's something that I think carried over into the 90s and the 2000s, the 90s in particular, to where it was have your action have a style to it. Have it be something to where if you took a screenshot of this movie and you showed it to someone, you said, what 1980s action movie is this? They would know it's Top Gun. And yeah, and obviously it's like I said, it's cheesy and it's fun and silly, but it's got that nice little core to it. Tom Cruise is great in this. Obviously this is one of the movies that really made him into a superstar. This is the movie that I think kind of helped him break the mold of just being a kind of Brat Pack star into being a real, true Hollywood star. Obviously all the aerial combat is great in this. And how they shot in and sort of in conjunction with the Navy, it looks great. It looks amazing still. And yeah, it's a fun movie. And again, kind of like with how I needed this list to have First Blood because of how visceral that action is. I felt like to not have, to me, what is probably the best of the 1980s sort of like cheesy, fun summer blockbuster action movies, I think that would be a mistake because this movie is that in the best terms. Number 3, Predator. Yeah, there's an argument to be made. This is, Arnold's best action movie. There's an argument to be made. But what gets it up for me over, let's say, other movies that didn't make this list, Commando or Terminator or Conan. For me, Predator, it's the fact that Arnold's not by himself. Because the other guy, Carl Weathers and Jesse Ventura, they're all great too. But for me, it's that thing that a lot of people have talked about with Predator, which is how it's kind of two action movies merged together. Because the first half is, it's the commando team. They go into the jungle and they take out, the sort of jungle, force. And then the second half is this like alien hunting them movie, to where now it's like the guys who were the cool badasses in the first part, well, now they're prey. And you can make a great movie with either one of those concepts. The commandos going into the jungle, taking out the guys, saving the troops, or maybe not saving the troops, I don't know. And the alien hunting movie. But John McTiernan and company put them together, and somehow it works. Like the one half where you kind of vaguely see the Predator doesn't falter because the stuff with the Predator is so good. Like it finds this great balance, and it also, to me, I think it sets up the second half so well, is because that first half you see how good this team is, see how clean this team is, and how they they take out those forces, and how they're all Jesse Ventura, you're bleeding, man, ain't got time to bleed. And then when the Predator starts taking them all out one by one, you start to realize how scary of an entity that this Predator, is, and to have it at the end be this really kind of brutal fight between Dutch and the Predator. I love it. I love that it comes down to, no guns, none of that, kind of just very, not bare knuckle fighting, but kind of, more, I don't even know, kind of way more like less technological, more just like one versus the other. And it's awesome. And this is one of Arnold's best acting performances, but it really is, it's how McTiernan, was able to meld those two action films together so perfectly that gets it to number 3 on my list. Number 2, Die Hard. Yeah. So fun thing about making this list is number 1 and 2 kept flip-flopping for me. But when I get to number 1, I'll tell you the reason why I put it over Die Hard. But Die Hard did perfect this type of action movie that sort of existed before. Because like disaster movies of the 70s, you had like the Poseidon Adventure and the Towering Inferno, to where they were, this like the action is confined to this one space and we don't leave that space. Die Hard didn't invent that. But what Die Hard did was it perfected it. It perfected it in giving us this everyday guy. People, I think, now really overlook John McClane in that movie in 1988, how he was just this, like, average police detective. Like, he's going noticeably bald. He's not, like, super ripped like, Stallone in, Rambo First Blood Part 2 or Arnold Schwarzenegger in Predator. Like he's in shape, but he's not this mega ripped dude. He gets his ass kicked time and time again in this movie. I mean, you look at him at the end of this movie, he's beaten, he's bloody, and his feet are cut up. I mean, he goes the entire movie basically without shoes and socks. And so that can't be overstated, that Die Hard, I think, really was the first action movie in a way that gave us a real normal guy at the center of it, who has these skills, who has these abilities, and is in a situation to where he's the only one who can solve this problem. And again, what I love is the fact that, like, you watch this movie, and I think this goes into the whole Die Hard trilogy, but you watch this movie in particular and you go, oh, John McClane became a cop because he cares about people. He wants to protect people. And yeah, he's sarcastic and he's kind of a jerk, but he's a lovable jerk. And everything he does is really to help save those people. Obviously Alan Rickman gives one of the best, villain turns in a movie, as Hans Gruber, who is this fun character. And again, it's funny, because I've been a fan of Die Hard for a really long time. I've listened to, the commentary track, and I've listened to, podcasts and read stuff and everything. I have that big old making of Die Hard, like, coffee table book my mom got for me for Christmas a few years ago. I've been meaning to really, like, seriously sit down and read that, but there's so much stuff. But, like, originally in the script, they, like, Hans Gruber and his gang were terrorists, and it was McTiernan who had the idea of going, wait, what if that's just a front? Like, what if they're just thieves, like, they're robbers? Because he was like, when you deal with terrorism, like, there's like political stuff with them, and it's also like, terrorists, even in 1988, like, it was a really scary thing. And so to have it be, no, that's just a front, but they're thieves. So it's like Ocean's 11. You can kind of have fun when you're with Hans Gruber and Carl and the whole gang, and you kind of do have fun. But obviously you do see the things they do, like, like Hans killing, his name's escaping me, someone in the comments will correct me, but the head of Nakatomi, when he kills them, you're like, yeah, no, these are bad guys. They are bad guys, but they're also kind of fun. But it really was, I think it was the combination of, I think it was really honing in on that action in a singular place, but with that really relatable hero that, it really took that kind of, Luke Skywalker concept to an action character, which was to make your character feel real. Because then, as the audience, we can understand them more, we can relate to them more when you, especially in an action way, when you can feel more like you can be there. Everything feels a little bit scarier and a little bit more fun when you succeed. Like, when you have that moment when Hans is doing the fake American accent and, John gets the one over on to where it's like, oh, no bullets, what do you think? I'm fucking stupid, Hans. You love that. As the audience are like, yeah, go, John, because if I was as smart as you and as cool as you, I could do that too. So yeah, Die Hard, I mean, it is still, even all these years later and all these action movies to come out, is still heralded as being, the best action movie of all time, not just the 80s. But obviously, it's just my number 2. So, what do I got at number 1? Lethal Weapon. Yeah, so again, kind of like Die Hard, Lethal Weapon didn't create this sort of buddy cop genre. Obviously, there was stuff like 48 Hours, that was, I think even another 48 Hours came out before Lethal Weapon. So this idea of just like two sort of polar opposites working together as cops, or I know in 48 Hours Eddie Murphy isn't a cop, but like it didn't create it, but it really did define everything. And it's funny, Lethal Weapon is one of those movies that if you take like a 16-year-old now who's seen all these action movies that have been released in the last couple of years, these cop movies and whatever, and you show them Lethal Weapon, they're going to be kind of bored by it, because like those moments when, when Riggs flips Murtaugh over and the guy comes up and he's like, meet your new partner. They're like, I've seen that 96,000 times. But Lethal Weapon was the first one to really do that. I've said it before on other videos, but Mel Gibson and Danny Glover as Riggs and Murtaugh are my favorite on-screen duo. I think the chemistry that they share in this movie is wonderful. And you see it in the first act. There is animosity between the two because Murtaugh doesn't want Riggs, because there's all this stuff with Riggs that he's kind of suicidal and he jumps the gun and he does all these things, and Riggs is, going through his hardships with the passing of his wife and kind of having his suicidal thoughts, and he knows that people think he's crazy. There's that great scene, to where he talks about, people think I'm faking it so that I could get psycho pension, in which case, they don't want to work with me, or they think I'm crazy, and in that case, they don't want to work with me. But then, of course, when Riggs saves Murtaugh at the I guess drug dealer's house, that all changes, and Murtaugh is like, this is gonna work out. Obviously the action is great. Richard Donner really knew what he was doing. Like, I mean, he really knew how to shoot a great action movie. Because you have that fight when Murtaugh's tied up and the bad guy's like, there are no heroes left, and Riggs just comes in with the gun on his back and just starts breaking necks and shooting guys. Like, it's awesome. But what sets it apart from Die Hard to make it my number one comes down to one scene, which is, there's that scene after Riggs has been shot by Mr. Joshua, and they're like, hey, like, we got a one-up on them. They think I'm dead. And so they're kind of laughing about that, like, haha, we kind of got him. And a cop calls kind of over the radio, like, a murder near Murtaugh's house. Like this young boy. And Murtaugh kind of, like, not even thinking of it, is just like, yeah, I'm sure he's, then he's got, dimples. And it's like, how'd you know that, Sarge? And Murtaugh goes, like, crazy, because he's like they just gave the description of the kid my daughter's dating, and they get to the house and they find the note, and Murtaugh's wife comes out, and Mr. Joshua calls and is like, like, we have your daughter. There's that moment after all that when Murtaugh and Riggs are talking, and Riggs is like, there's only one way to do this. It's like, we gotta go in and kill him. And Murtaugh's like, are you as good as you say you are? And Riggs is like, you're going to have to trust me. There's something about that moment, the lighting with like the red Christmas lights, and particularly the acting, that moment elevates Lethal Weapon ever so much over Die Hard. And I love Die Hard. And Die Hard is full of a lot of amazing moments and scenes, that moment when he's talking to Al, and, the whole thing with Holly, like, just tell him I'm sorry. Like, that's great. But there's nothing in Die Hard to me that is like that moment, which is you're going to have to trust me. Like, that moment almost is the building of the entire movie. It's the building of the animosity between the two that then kind of turns into friendship. The building of Riggs being suicidal and having to find a reason to live. Murtaugh being a father and having, obviously the whole thing with him, getting older and all that. Like, it all builds to that moment of just like, we know what we have to do. And the way we're going to do this is you and I have to trust each other as partners. It's just incredible. Lethal Weapon, it's an incredible movie. And to me, it is the best 1980s action movie. So that is my list, my top 5 best 1980s action movies. What do you think of my list? And more importantly, what is your list? I don't want to know your favorites. I want to know what you think the top 5 1980s action movies are. Go in the comments and share your list with me. Like I said, I'm going to share a link in my description to my WordPress where I talked about Top Gun. Please, guys, let me know if you liked this video. I have a list for 1990s action movies that I'll definitely be shooting sometime soon. But if you didn't see my channel update, you're going to be seeing more videos like this that are unscripted, things like this. So let me know if you like this. Let me know what other topics. Maybe you would like me to do top 5, I don't know, westerns or dramas. I don't know. Let me know what kind of things you want to hear from me. As always, you guys can follow me on Twitter at Kearns_Matthew. Subscribe to me right here so you don't miss anything. And you can also find me on Take 3 Production. Subscribe over there where I do some other fun stuff. But for now, this has been the video. I've been Matt Movies, and thank you so much for watching.